Students, let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is the 16th September 2016. The first article is related to the Kaveri dispute. When Supreme Court has adjudged for the release of the water from Karnataka to Tamil Nadu, there is a huge violence erupted on both the sides. The Supreme Court has taken the matter seriously and it said that the democratic institutions cannot be taken up or cannot be controlled by the mobocracy. Or few mobs, fringe mobs, they cannot control the decisions of the Supreme Court. What may be, its decisions need to be implemented by the governments of the day. Now, coming to antibiotic resistance. It is a case study and it has been done by the All India Institute of Medical Science. So, Delhi neonatal infection, that is what is the case study is called. If we observe, more than 20% of the deaths among the children, neonatal deaths in hospitals, are due to the antibiotic resistance. So there is an increased incidence of the antibiotic resistance. Few years back, if you see, there was a new enzyme identified which can curtail the functioning of the various antibiotics, that is called New Delhi metallozyme enzyme, which is leading to the E. coli, drug resistance for E. coli. Now, Klebsiella, E. coli, Acinetobacter, all these are being said to be resistant to these antibiotics. So, why the antibiotic resistance is increasing in India? One reason is indiscriminate use of the drugs, incomplete regimens, and added to that, over-the-counter use of the antibiotics. So, these things have to be reduced. Now, coming to Shahabuddin case. In India, elections and politics and crime, these are intricately connected with each other. Now, the Shahabuddin is a typical example of this, how the criminal elements can dictate the terms to the political regimes of the day. So, in this scenario, the electoral reforms becomes very critical. You already know that any person who is convicted for an offence, then he can be disqualified to contest the elections for the period of offence plus 6 years. So obviously he is convicted for 11 years and he is on the bail now. Unless he appeals the matter in the higher judiciary, and if it evicts the charges against him, he cannot contest the elections. So there are certain judicial safeguards, judgments given by judiciary are acting as a check against the criminal elements, but however, the informal role they are able to play in the functioning of the system, it is very draconian. Now coming to the Paris Agreement. You know that India has given its nationally determined contributions at the Paris Agreement. Now, India has to ratify the Paris Agreement. In India, the ratification is done by the cabinet. In this process, the 40% of the energy by 2030 in India, it has to come from non-fossil fuel sources. So for this, India says that its entry into NSG is very critical. Now, US is ready to help India to enter into NSG, but it says signing of the Paris Agreement and entry into NSG, they have to be considered as two separate issues based on their individual merit. Now, coming to the drug prices in India, drug prices across the world. Now, the research and development and the costs incurred on the research is linked to the drug prices across the West. Because of this, the essential drugs and their availability to the world is decreasing. So the cost of the medicines has to come down to achieve the universal health care as for the sustainable developmental goals. In this context, UN has appointed a panel on access to medicines, and it has said that the drug prices from research and development, the drug prices and research and development have to be separated from each other. And along with that, it also said the human rights, they have to take precedence over the intellectual property rights. So, in this context, it has strongly supported the generic drug industry that is supplying the cheaper drugs to the world in India. Now, coming to India, Pakistan and Afghanistan conundrum. Now, you know that initially when Mr. Ghani became the president of Afghanistan, he wanted to move close to the Pakistan. He believed that Pakistan plays a strategic role in bringing the Taliban across the table. So, Pakistan failed in Murree talks. It failed to call in the Taliban, and the quadrant, that is Pakistan, Afghanistan, China and US, they failed to negotiate a deal with Taliban, and the violence of the Taliban has increased. Disillusioned with this, Now, Mr. Ghani is coming close to India again. Now, Afghanistan has strong trade relations with India. But however, lack of proper transit and trade agreement between India and Pakistan is hindering the exports of Afghanistan into India. In this scenario, India is developing an alternate route through the Chabahar port in Iran. From there, Jaranj-Dilaram highway, it goes to the Afghanistan. The second thing is, the Afghanistan president has categorically said that if Pakistan do not allow for its exports to India, so the Kabul will take a relook on allowing Pakistani exports to Central Asia. And also the border dispute is cropping up. Along with this, India's stand on the Balochistan was supported by Mr. Ashraf Ghani. So India, as a policy, did not want to supply the lethal weapons to Afghanistan. Deviating from this, it has given the helicopters, fighter helicopters to Afghanistan. And the Chief of Army of Afghanistan also has visited India, and more lethal weapons are bound to go for Afghanistan from India. US, once it was very skeptical about the role of India in Afghanistan, it has welcomed the military assistance of India to Afghanistan now. So in this context, the relations between India and Afghanistan are getting reshaped with a new or else renewed reality. Now coming to Prachanda's visit. You know that KP Sharma Oli was the Prime Minister till last month. And with the Nepali Congress support, Mr. Pushpa Kumar Dahal has become the Prime Minister, who is also known as Prachanda. Now there is an agreement where in 2018 elections need to be held based on the new constitution. So half the time Mr. Prachanda will be in power, the remaining half, Sher Bahadur Devwa of Nepali Congress will be in power. So now there is one small diplomatic thing we need to observe. Last time when Prachanda has become the Prime Minister, the first visit of him is to China. Now, his first visit is to India. And the second thing is, he has toned down his all actions which were previously guided against India. His anti-India rhetoric has come down. He wanted to repair the damaged relations with India. And Mahadesis and their issues, the proportional representation, redrawing of the provincial boundaries, all these also need to be taken up by him. But however, he do not possess the necessary majority in this context. So final to this, the infrastructure post-earthquake reconstruction, these are very much on the agenda of the Prachanda's visit to India. Now coming to Aadhaar details, you already know that Aadhaar bill was passed by the Parliament as money bill. Now any establishment which possesses the Aadhaar details of an individual shall not be disclosed in public, and it becomes a punishable offence up to 3 years. Now coming to the Aam Aadmi Party. More than Aam Aadmi Party, I want to talk about the political parties and their situation in India. Because today Aam Aadmi Party is no different from other traditional parties. That's what this author claims it. Now if you talk about this scenario, the personality cult also has raised in Aam Aadmi Party. And then the internal democracy has weakened. There is a lot of dissidence. And the voices, dissident voices are being expelled from the party rather than discussing and agreeing for a consensus. And along with this, the political mobilization is not based on an ideology or a broader perspective, but it is based on just anti-corruption movement. It means the civil society hangover, it is still existing on the AAP party. And finally, the internal squabbles and the recent scams and the tussle in Delhi between the governor and the chief minister, all these are defaming the AAP as an alternative movement. So in this context, a middle class movement, or also a movement that has enthused the middle class, appears to be fading away now. Now coming to Apple's tax troubles. Now Apple, most of its profits, it places that in Dublin, Ireland. So, because Ireland, the tax is around 12%, in US it is around 36%. Now, European Commission, it has imposed 13 billion euros as a fine on the Apple because the Dublin's tax laws, they are not in accordance with the European Commission laws. But however, Apple is challenging this. But how US will react to this is the question. What will be its impact on US-European Union, transatlantic trade and investment agreement, how it is going to take this. So these are the issues for today. Thank you very much and all the best.